Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Barima-Waini in Guyana. You can kind of see Guyana there. So in English, this is pronounced Guyana because it is an English-speaking region of Guyana. So there's French Guyana, there's the Guyana Highlands. Lots of things are called Guyana, the French word for the Guinea, like the Guinea coast. But if you're referring to this country, it is Guyana. Kind of like how in the United States it's Nevada, not Nevada, and Colorado, not Colorado, right? It has its own pronunciation, so it is Guyana, if you're speaking English at least. Just for reference. So up here, and like as north as you can get in the country, is Region 1, as it's also known as, or Barima-Waini, which is named after the two rivers you can see here, Barima and Waini. Barima-Waini. This area was known as the Northwest District until 1980, when it got this new name, which is much better, I think. Much more exciting, at least. And it describes this area, the two dominant rivers there. Barima-Waini borders the Atlantic Ocean here. And you can see right here is Shell Beach, which is important for sea turtles. There are 4 different species of sea turtles that lay eggs on this beach, so it's very protected and is a tentative UNESCO World Heritage Site. So fingers crossed that someday it'll become a full site, and the turtles here can get even more protection and maybe become Guyana's first UNESCO site, because they don't have any currently in 2024. That would be neat. The capital, we can see right here, kind of hard to read because it's written right on the border of Venezuela there. That is Mabaruma. You can see the nearby town Morawana over here. And that was originally going to be the capital of this region, but apparently it's prone to flooding. So they picked Mabaruma instead, quite nearby. And unfortunately, we're not going to have any Google Earth in this video tonight because the pictures in this region are not the best, but I would encourage you to explore it on your own because there are some pictures and they're quite nice. I just don't want to whip out the tablet and set all that up just to show you like a minute of pictures. There's not many, but the ones that are there are very nice, and they are mostly of the landscape here, which is quite thickly forested. Lots of beautiful rainforest, jungly environments here. And the towns are all very tiny. Most of them don't have slideshows anyway, so there's not really too much to show you on Google Earth, so we're going to skip that portion tonight. Most of the towns you see labeled here are actually indigenous communities. The population is primarily indigenous, or as they say in Guyana, they'd say Amerindian. The main tribes here would be the Arawaks and Caribs, which is fun because we were just in the Caribbean not long ago talking about these people groups. And there's also the Warao, which I don't know, from my research, I figure there's more Warao further down the coast here. And I don't know, I don't think as much in this area, but there's the present here. Big coastal communities there. So interesting that there's so many inland ones, but you can see one here called Matthews Ridge is actually quite important because in 1962 they discovered manganese. And manganese is a mineral that you probably know is what stainless steel is made out of. So a mining industry occurred there. It was quite profitable. And they built a bunch of other towns around to kind of help out with that industry, including Port Kaituma, which I'm going to talk about a little more. That's the Kaituma River there. That industry has shut down, and now the main mined mineral in here is gold. There isn't a huge gold industry, but gold can be found there. And it's just a very small industry that some people partake in here. Now, I think now that we've got basic geography out of the way, we're going to get into the history portion, which I'm hesitating very much about. So we're going to start with the easier history, which is also very complicated, but a lot more YouTube friendly. So, as you see over here is Venezuela, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear more about Venezuela. It's going to be a tablet-only video, so you can see more of Venezuela. This coastal area, the Guyana coast, right, was primarily controlled by the French and the Dutch during the colonial time. The British came in and said, well, we want a piece of the pie, and started to invade, and during the Napoleonic Wars took advantage of the chaos happening over in the Netherlands and stole a bunch of Dutch land. But keep in mind that the majority of the land here is just thick Amazon rainforest, right? Especially further south down here is just impenetrable Amazon rainforest. So you can claim the land, but it's kind of hard to do so because there's portions of the forest down here that people have not even set foot in because it's so densely forested that you literally cannot. So once the dust settled in 1814 from the Napoleonic Wars, the British were like, well, let's stake our claim here on the Guyana coast. And they sent an explorer to map out the area as best they could and draw up the borders, and that is where this border comes from. This border is called the Schomburg Line, and it was officiated in 1840. Now, Venezuela was going through its chaotic independence era at the time. They were Gran Colombia, they became independent. Previous to that, they were viciously fighting for their independence from Spain. So the whole time, they were like, you guys shouldn't even be here. Like, this is technically our land. So once this line was drawn, Venezuela rejected it. They said, that's nonsense. We ignore that because we claim all of this land. We always have. Spain claimed it. We claim it. And it's just kind of been a very contentious subject. You can kind of see, if I swing the atlas over here, you can see this line here, and this is the Essequibo River. So Venezuela claims everything to the left, the Essequibo, including the area we're talking about tonight, Barima-Waini. It was kind of a, he said, she said kind of thing. It didn't really matter until oil was discovered off the coast of Guyana. And I guess because Venezuela just doesn't have enough oil, they wanted more. So they said, no, seriously, this is our land. And they held a referendum in 2023, and it passed that decreed that this is part of Venezuela. And in 2024, I want to say March or April, they officially made Essequibo, or they say Essequiba, a state of Venezuela, because Venezuela has states. And they're building up a invasion force to come and invade this area. So obviously the Guyanese are like, no, thank you, but no, this is our country. Venezuela had their way, like a good 2/3 of the country would be snatched up by Venezuela, and people here are very against it. So it's something to keep an eye on, isn't it? It's something to observe and hope that it does not turn into a full-scale invasion. So yeah, that is the tension between Guyana and Venezuela. If you haven't heard anything about it, it's flown under the radar because there are many other world conflicts happening at the moment. You can all, I'm sure, think of two very large ones. And this one's really flown under the radar because of those, I think. So something to keep an eye on, isn't it? This could be Venezuela one day, but we hope not, because it's been Guyana for like 200 years, and it's perfectly fine being Guyana. Now let's talk about something much darker. It's going to be hard to get through this, because this is a very dark chapter in Guyana's history, and one of the biggest tragedies in human history, in my opinion. So, trigger warning for, I guess, self-exiting, whatever YouTube-friendly term is going around at the time. If you need to click off the video now, I wouldn't blame you. I probably would, to be honest. Because there was a very terrible man in my hometown of San Francisco named Jim Jones, and he created his own cult called the People's Church. And at the time it was very progressive. It was very, all races are equal, we should all just get along, live like socialist kind of way. It attracted a lot of African Americans to his congregation. He got really into drugs, got really paranoid that the government was going to come for him. So he and his followers relocated to just outside of Port Kaituma here and created their own settlement called Jonestown, and essentially isolated hundreds, like 900 something people from their families, and started their own little cult community there. And Jim Jones just became more and more paranoid. So when a senator from California came to see what was going on here, because there were many family members complaining about their family's members disappearing, he was killed as he was trying to leave by members of the cult, and Jim Jones was convinced that this was the end, and he convinced hundreds of people, there were very few survivors, everyone, to drink the Kool-Aid that was poisoned. It's actually Flavor Aid, but no one cares. And it was the largest mass suicide in history. Every child did not survive. They injected them with cyanide. It's just a very tragic event. And me being from San Francisco, Jonestown is not a joke. It is not a punchline. It is not entertaining, because there are many people in the Bay Area that are still grieving the loss of their loved ones from this event. It is not funny at all in the Bay Area, where I'm from. So, that happened. Everything is gone now. If you go to visit this site, they left up the Jonestown, like the Welcome to Jonestown sign, and there's a memorial there for the many people who lost their lives on that very tragic day. And another reason that we're not on Google Earth is that in the slideshow is pictures of the caskets for all these people, so we're not going to look at that. It is a fascinating story if you are into how cults work and how they can manipulate people and how far they can go, but it is just one of the very tragic stories that have come out of modern day cults. Just if your church is like, hey, we need to relocate to South America, just don't do it. Just don't go, okay? That's not good news at all. And it's such a heavy topic. I don't know how to deliver it in a relaxing way. And it's just so sad. It's not something Guyana is proud of, obviously. So, researching this area, that fact was buried in a lot of other things that I had to dig through to realize that's where Jonestown was located. I thought it was closer to Georgetown, but evidently not. So, that is essentially the tidbits of history I found in this region here. Not uplifting, and I feel really bad wearing my Halloween nails during a sad story like that, but it is October. It's my favorite time of year. So anyway, next in my series, like I said, we're popping over to Venezuela, and it's going to be tablet only. let me show you the region we're going to, because it's literally right here. Oops. Let me zoom in for you too. Here we go. Make sure this is propped up. Perfect. Okay. So, there we go. This is Barinas. This is where we're going to go next in the series, and this map is fine. You can see I traced it out so you can see it a little easier. This map is fine. It's not ideal, and there's lots of cool pictures on Google Earth, so it's going to be tablet only. We're not going to explore the map here. So this is your map portion. But, yeah, we're going to see the beautiful Llanos and mountains and all of that tomorrow. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. And let's head back to Guyana. Okay. Alright, so thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you learned down in the comments. And yeah, be sure to subscribe so you can see more of Venezuela. And then at the end of this week, we're going to Kenya. And you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be tablet only as well. You're not going to want to miss that one. It's so neat. Lots of cool pictures to show you in central Kenya in the Rift Valley. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. I hope that you have a good night.